I
Yeah.
want you to imagine a time long before sterile laboratories, clinical trials, and white coats.
A time when the very first pharmacy was a sprawling, untamed forest.
Right, and the very first doctors teaching us how to heal. They were the animals living right alongside us.
It is a profound shift in perspective, and it really challenges a lot of the assumptions we make about where our health truly comes from. We are looking at a fundamental change in how we view healthcare, healing, and ultimately our place within the natural world.
And that is exactly the journey we're taking today. Our source material for this deep dive is a really fascinating excerpt from Chapter 16, Part 2 of Mahendra Shah's book, The Awakening, Securing the Living Earth.
Yes, specifically we're focusing on a section titled The Partnership of Humans and Animals.
Right. Our mission today is to figure out how human health is inextricably and deeply linked to nature, how modern medicine and ancient wisdom are finally starting to collide, and what all of this means for the future of your well-being.
It's an incredibly timely topic.
Okay, let's unpack this, because medicine did not begin under a microscope, did it? I mean, how did early humans even figure out what to take when they were sick?
They figured it out through pure, sustained observation. Early humans, they didn't have the luxury of a double-blind clinical trial.
Right, obviously.
They had their eyes, their environment, and a profound imperative to survive. When you look at the origins of healing, you realize humans learned how to treat themselves by watching what animals did when they were unwell.
Which makes total sense when you think about it.
Exactly. Think about it. If you're living in the wild and you notice a specific animal is lethargic, clearly sick, and suddenly it starts grazing on a specific plant or root that it usually completely ignores,
You take note.
you pay incredibly close attention. Early humans watched these behaviors. They tasted the same leaves, they crushed the bark, they boiled the roots to see what happened.
Just trial and error based on animal behavior.
Yes, they monitored what eased physical pain, what stopped bleeding, what helped a labored breath return to normal. It was a shared ecology. They were learning the chemistry of the forest by watching the creatures who already understood it.
But how does that knowledge actually survive? I mean, if someone figures out that chewing a certain leaf cures a stomachache, how does that information make it across hundreds or thousands of years?
Without medical textbooks, you mean?
Exactly.
It relied entirely on the power of oral tradition, which is a system we often severely underestimate today.
We really do. We think if it isn't written down in a peer-reviewed journal, it doesn't exist.
But this immense, vital library of medical knowledge lived through stories, rituals, and daily practices. Across communities in Africa, Asia, the Americas, and various island nations, generation after generation passed down incredibly specific data.
Like an unbroken chain of information.
Exactly. They memorized exactly which plants could cool a fever, which leaves could close an open wound, and which seeds were necessary to assist with childbirth. It wasn't a static record on a shelf. It was living, breathing knowledge that was constantly tested and refined by everyday use.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because you hear a phrase like ancient herbal rituals, and it is so easy to write that off as just pleasant, unscientific folklore.
Right, the whole old wives' tale dismissiveness.
Yeah. But when you actually look at the origins of some of the most common, heavy-hitting modern treatments we use today, they trace right back to this wild pharmacy.
They absolutely do.
Take something as simple as aspirin. How do we get there?
Aspirin is a perfect example. Ancient Egyptians, and later the Greeks, used to chew on willow bark to treat pain and fever. For centuries, that was just considered an herbal remedy.
Just chewing on tree bark.
Right. But much later, modern scientists analyzed willow bark and found it contains a compound called salicin. We eventually figured out how to synthesize a safer version of that compound, acetylsalicylic acid.
Which is the exact active ingredient in the aspirin you buy at the store today.
Precisely. The ancients didn't know the molecular structure, but they knew the result.
And the examples just keep piling up in the text. Turmeric is everywhere right now in modern wellness circles for inflammation.
Oh, you can't go to a cafe without seeing a turmeric latte.
Exactly. But long before anyone had a microscope to validate its anti-inflammatory properties, it was being used for exactly that purpose in traditional medicine in China and India.
And then there's honey.
Right. We put it in our tea, but bees were essentially providing a localized antibacterial ointment. People used it to heal skin and soothe infections long before we understood what bacteria even was.
It's nature's perfect preservative and healer.
But the one that is absolutely wild to me involves snakes. How do we get from a deadly snake to a life-saving medication?
That is one of the most remarkable leaps in medical history. People universally fear venomous snakes, and for good reason.
Yeah, survival instinct.
But scientists studying the venom of the Brazilian pit viper noticed something specific about what happened to the people who were bitten. Their blood pressure plummeted.
Because the venom was attacking their system.
Right. The venom contained a peptide that caused blood vessels to dilate rapidly. By isolating how that peptide worked, researchers were able to develop a whole new class of drugs called ACE inhibitors.
And ACE inhibitors are huge.
Massive. They are now taken by millions of people globally to lower human blood pressure and prevent heart failure.
So a lethal defense mechanism in a reptile became a daily life-extending pill for humans. That is just incredible. And it's not just blood pressure. There is artemisinin, which comes from a plant compound traditionally used in China.
Which became an absolute breakthrough treatment for malaria.
Yeah, and then you have vincristine and vinblastine. These sound like highly synthetic lab creations, but they're drawn straight from the Madagascar periwinkle plant.
And they are now used all over the world to fight cancer.
It's mind-blowing.
What's fascinating here is how modern medicine, as it rose to global dominance, initially pushed a lot of this older wisdom aside.
Sort of an arrogance of the new.
Exactly. For a long time, the prevailing attitude was that if it didn't come from a sterile lab, it was primitive. It was categorized as unscientific folklore.
But the tide is turning.
It is. In recent decades, scientists have returned to these traditional herbal practices with new advanced tools. And what they're finding is that this folklore is backed by very real, undeniable chemistry. The forest got there first.
Okay, but this makes me wonder, if the plants always had the chemistry and we are just now building the machines capable of seeing it, why do we need to synthesize it at all?
That's a great question.
Like, why not just take the plant? What is the actual difference between the single compound drugs I get at the pharmacy and the holistic approach of herbal medicine?
That is a crucial distinction. Let's break it down. Modern pharmacology is brilliant at isolation. If you have a headache, a modern drug gives you a massive, concentrated dose of the one specific active compound that targets that exact pain receptor.
So it's a single compound approach.
A magic bullet, if you will. Herbal medicine works entirely differently. A plant isn't just one isolated chemical. It's a complex structure containing hundreds of compounds.
So you take the whole plant, you're getting all of it.
Yes, it works holistically. Think of it like a symphony rather than a single instrument playing a solo. The different compounds in the plant interact with each other and with the human body in a multifaceted way.
Doing more than just one thing.
Right. They often support more than one biological system at once, and sometimes even buffering the side effects of the primary active ingredient.
And there's a massive accessibility angle here that we have to talk about, right?
Yeah.
Because for you or me, getting medicine usually just means a quick trip to the store or paying a quick copay.
A convenience most of the world does not share.
Exactly. For millions of people around the globe without access to modern hospitals or the money to pay for highly processed pharmaceuticals, these plants are quite literally a lifeline.
Absolutely. Traditional plant medicines offer time-tested, highly effective treatments that are geographically accessible. They grow right where the people live.
There's no supply chain issue.
No shipping delays. And they are understood deeply by the local community. Crucially, they are affordable. For a huge portion of the global population, the forest isn't an alternative to the pharmacy. It is the only pharmacy.
But this connection goes beyond just treating a fever or a snake bite. Let's transition from physical health to mental well-being, because the role of animals here is just as profound.
It really is.
We talked about early humans watching animals to learn what to eat, but the text points out that animals directly support human mental health just by being present.
They do, and this is something most people have experienced on a micro level in their own homes. But in a clinical sense, we see care programs utilizing horses and dogs to support people living with severe trauma, grief, or navigating life with autism.
The therapeutic value is immense. Think about the last time you came home after a terribly stressful day and your dog or cat just sat next to you.
You didn't have to explain your day to them.
No, they didn't offer you unsolicited advice or tell you what you did wrong.
That physical presence alone physically lowers your heart rate.
Just sitting there.
Precisely. The key observation is that these animals don't need to speak. Their mere physical presence quietens a room and calms the human mind. They offer pure, judgment-free connection.
It's so powerful.
In many traditional communities throughout the world, being around animals isn't viewed as just a nice, extraneous bonus to the healing process. It is considered absolutely central to it.
You can't separate the two.
Yeah. The belief is that you simply cannot heal a human being without connection to the non-human world. We are too deeply intertwined.
Which brings up a really stark inequality that the source highlights, and it needs to be addressed. We could call it the one-way street problem.
Ah, yes, the extraction dynamic.
Right. We have this dynamic where modern medicine is increasingly tapping into the rich historical knowledge of these herbal traditions to discover new pharmaceutical drugs. But the communities whose livelihoods and histories actually depend on those herbal traditions, what are they getting in return?
Often, they're getting absolutely nothing. It is a profound imbalance. These communities are effectively sharing the secrets of the forest, guiding researchers to the plants that hold cures.
Doing the foundational legwork?
Yes. But when those cures are patented and sold as incredibly expensive drugs, the rural communities do not get equal access to that modern medicine. They aren't getting the life-saving hospital care that gets built from their own backyard secrets.
And in many of these rural areas, the traditional healers are the very first and sometimes the absolute only line of care available.
They are essentially the primary care physicians for millions of people.
Working without an MRI machine or a stocked pharmacy?
They are. These healers know the land intimately. They understand the ecology, the seasons, and the history of the people they treat. They often work with incredibly limited resources, yet they are held in deep, unwavering trust by their communities.
So they have the social capital that modern medicine sometimes lacks in those areas.
Exactly. If these traditional healers were simply included in modern health systems, rather than being pushed aside or viewed as obsolete competitors, modern healthcare could reach vastly more people. Countless lives would be saved just by utilizing the network of trust that already exists.
So what does this all mean for us today? Are we supposed to abandon modern hospitals and go back to foraging in the woods to find true health?
Not at all. It is not about regression, it is about integration. We need a new model of medicine that doesn't ask us to pick sides.
We shouldn't have to choose.
Exactly. It shouldn't force a choice between the high-tech hospital and the traditional herb. Instead, we should envision a two-way relationship where doctors and herbalists actually learn from each other.
How would that work in practice?
Well, imagine a patient who finds incredible value in getting a highly advanced MRI scan to diagnose a physical problem. But that same patient also finds deep, meaningful value in understanding the ecology and the sacredness of the plant medicine they are taking to help heal that problem. It is the best of both worlds.
And this isn't just some utopian daydream either. We are already seeing this integration become a reality, specifically through the collision of technology and tradition.
Yes, the mobile health revolution.
How are smartphones changing the way traditional healers operate in remote areas right now?
It is a perfect marriage of data and lived experience. We are seeing mobile tools being used to connect remote rural areas to massive medical databases.
Out in the middle of nowhere?
Right. So you have a local healer out in the field drawing on centuries of traditional knowledge, but they are also using a smartphone to double-check complex plant interactions.
Making sure two herbs don't negatively interact.
Exactly. They can calculate precise dosages based on modern clinical data, ensuring safety while maintaining their traditional practice. It completely empowers the healer.
But there is a caveat to that technology, isn't there?
Yeah.
I mean, an app can do a lot of things, but it can't hold your hand?
Right. Technology can absolutely help us organize, verify, and distribute care safely. But it cannot replace what human beings fundamentally crave when they are sick or frightened.
The human element.
We crave touch, memory, and a deep sense of belonging. An app might give you the perfect calculated dosage of a botanical compound, but it cannot give you the empathy of a healer sitting beside you, understanding your environment and your family history.
Which leads right into the philosophical core of this entire deep dive. How does all of this change the way we actually look at the planet?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, we have to look at how we perceive the natural world itself. The text argues we must undergo a radical shift in perception.
From what to what?
Right now, humanity largely views nature through the lens of its use value. We look at a forest and ask, what can we extract from this? What chemical compound can we isolate? What timber can we harvest and sell?
We're looking at it purely as an inventory of resources.
Exactly. We have to shift to seeing nature for its care value.
Care value. I want to pause there because that is A dense concept. What does shifting to care value actually mean in a practical sense?
It means defining care as a two-way street. The logic is simple but powerful. If we care for nature, we are inherently caring for ourselves, because nature is the very foundation of our medicine, our air, and our mental health.
It's a closed loop.
You cannot separate human-centered care from the care of the earth. If you destroy the environment, you are destroying your own pharmacy and your own sanctuary.
And the urgency of that shift is terrifying when you look at the data. We are watching forests being cut down and paved over at an alarming rate.
It's an ecological crisis.
So what happens when the very animal and plant species that have historically helped us understand pain and recovery start rapidly disappearing?
When a species of plant or animal vanishes into extinction, it isn't just a sad ecological event or a loss of pretty scenery. We are literally losing future medical treatments.
On forever.
Yes. We are losing the biological data and the connections they could have gifted us. It is the equivalent of burning down a library of cures before anyone has even had the chance to read the books.
And it isn't just the physical medicine we lose. There is an emotional component here that is deeply tied to indigenous knowledge. How does nature teach us how to feel?
Well, without a connection to the natural world and animals, human beings become emotionally impoverished. We lose the capacity to fully experience our own emotions.
That's a strong statement.
But look at the indigenous peoples of the world. Their sacred remedies are never just about handing someone a physical chemical to swallow. Healing is deeply bound up with human emotion.
It's an event.
It's an event intertwined with joy, with sadness, with dance, with community, and with movement. Healing is an emotional and physical event. The natural world provides the context for that emotion.
But when we talk about indigenous knowledge, we have to talk about how that knowledge has been treated by the rest of the world.
We do. It's a dark history.
What exactly happens when a massive pharmaceutical company discovers that an indigenous community has been using a specific root to cure an illness for 1,000 years?
Historically, and frankly even currently, it leads to a very sobering reality regarding exploitation, often called biopiracy.
Biopiracy.
Yes. Too often, the remedies developed, tested, and safeguarded by indigenous people have been entirely co-opted. Outside entities, like pharmaceutical corporations, take the knowledge, isolate the compound in a lab, patent it, and commercialize it.
Slap a brand name on it.
And sell it globally without the consent of the indigenous creators. And crucially, without those original communities receiving any of the financial benefit or recognition.
I know there was an international agreement called the Nagoya Protocol that was specifically created to stop this kind of biopiracy and ensure that benefits were shared fairly. But from what the source material indicates, it just hasn't worked, has it?
Unfortunately, no. The protocols simply have not been effectively implemented or enforced on a global scale. The exploitation continues.
Which is incredibly frustrating.
It is. And this brings us back to the ethics of care we mentioned earlier. If we truly want to learn from the vast, life-saving knowledge of indigenous people, we have to understand that sharing must be built on trust.
And you can't have trust while actively stealing.
Exactly. Trust is built on an ethics of recognition, respect, and fairness. That absolutely must include monetary fairness and intellectual property rights.
Is the ultimate litmus test. How we treat indigenous people and their ancestral knowledge really proves whether humanity is actually capable of extending an ethics of care toward nature as a whole.
Because if we can't respect the people guarding the forest, we certainly won't respect the forest itself.
Exactly. And to highlight how much we owe to the natural world, there is a historical example in the text that moves beyond just plants and the forest, right into modern scientific testing. Let's talk about the astrochimps.
The astrochimps, yes.
What was their role in human progress?
The astrochimps serve as a stark, undeniable historical reminder of our reliance on animals. Before human beings could safely launch into space, we simply didn't know what the physical or psychological toll of leaving the Earth's atmosphere would be.
It was a complete unknown.
So chimpanzees were sent up first to test those limits. They paved the way for human space travel, taking on the massive risks and the physical toll.
Making sure it was safe for us.
Right. It is just one of countless examples of how human progress, safety, and health have fundamentally depended on the sacrifice and participation of animals. We owe them an immense debt.
So, as we wrap up this deep dive, the core takeaway is incredibly clear. The future of your health and the health of everyone you love is not locked inside one single system.
It's not an either-or scenario.
Right. It isn't going to be just sterile labs and synthetic pills, and it isn't going to be just foraging in the woods and rejecting modern science. The future requires weaving science with tradition.
It requires blending policy with culture and hard clinical data with deeply lived experience.
Exactly. Healing doesn't always need to be high-tech to be effective. Sometimes the most powerful medicine begins in a garden or on a quiet forest path, or simply with the patient, silent companionship of a dog sitting beside a hospital bed.
We have to make room for all of it.
It's a beautiful vision of integration. But there is one final urgent twist from the text that we have to discuss before we go.
This raises an important question we are concluding by introducing a brand new player onto the world stage, one that exacerbates the urgency of absolutely everything we've just talked about.
And that player is the birth of artificial intelligence.
Yes. AI has the capacity to both enrich and destroy human life like nothing we have ever seen before.
It's a total wild card. So I want to leave you, the listener, pondering this, building on everything we've just unpacked today. If the future of medicine truly involves integrating ancient, emotion-based, sacred, indigenous wisdom with modern digital medical databases, how do we ensure that this incredibly powerful new artificial intelligence doesn't just strip mine this unwritten knowledge purely for data?
It's a chilling thought.
Can an AI, a system built entirely on code, algorithms, and logic, ever truly comprehend the care value of a medicinal plant or the healing silence of a dog? Or will it, by its very nature, only ever be capable of seeing their use value?
It is the ultimate test of our new era. Can we teach a machine the ethics of care, or will it simply accelerate the extraction we're trying so hard to stop?
It is a lot to think about the next time you open your medicine cabinet and reach for a pill. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive.
Thanks for having me.
Take a moment today to look a little closer at the natural world around you. You might just be looking at the future of medicine.